Well, hello. Welcome in, everybody. It's that time. It's a Thursday lunch. Yep. Got the little four-legged boss coming in to check it out. He must know I'm getting ready to cook. Good afternoon, everybody. Hello. And thanks for dropping in. We got a couple recipes today. And lunch with Frank, it is. Hey, Ellen, how are you? Thanks for joining me again. I hope you enjoy today. And yeah, please pass it, invite folks. We would love it. Oh, I see Chris is going to be back in the box today. So I invited Chris, and Sherry is also going to be in the box today. And I know a couple of the other creators are going to be watching. Hey, Jane, how are you? Welcome in. Hey, everybody. I'm one of the creators here at Food Talk. If this is your first time with us, I go live every Thursday. I'm part of a group of us that kind of share food and cooking and hacks under the label of Food Talk TV. And we have a lot of different styles and ways that we work to do our food. Sometimes we are on the same page. Sometimes we have a different of opinion. So that's all about our lives. So we go live every single day. And let's see if I've got who is in the room. I thought I saw Chris. Chris, did you? All right, it looks like you're. Oh, there we are. Hey, Chris. He's coming in. So, Food Talk TV is, gosh, we're over a year
I don't
old.
know what's going on.
I can hear you.
Yeah,
Looks
I
like your camera's
disappeared. I
turned
don't know
off.
where I went.
I
Unless
hear
it
that
was
every day of my life, believe me. So, while you settle in, let's keep an eye out for Sherry's going to join us again today. It's got that.
don't
And,
see myself.
oh, Ellen.
Hold
Thank
on, let me
you.
see if I can.
Is that? I hope that's to me. But I'll always take a compliment, although I feel like I'm the old man. But oh, Chris dropped off, so he'll be back. But I'm so excited. I have been really enjoying these. I see Sherry just jumped in. I'm really enjoying these Thursday lunches. They sort of took me a while to morph into how I could do a live that I was happy with, and they have now just become so much fun. And there is Sherry. Hello.
Hello. How are you?
I am good. I am good. Chris was on, and he's coming back in.
Okay.
And welcome everybody. So I'm going to kick off because I got that 1 hour because then I have to actually go back to work. So
Ooh.
I actually am literally working while we. So I
Here
do
I
this
am.
in real time. There you
Hello.
are. Trying to accommodate the boxes. All right. Well, what are we making this week? I have two dishes. The first dish is going to be a dish that could be a side dish. It's great with a salad. It could be a main course, and it's green beans with potatoes and tomatoes. Now, Chris might have grown up with this like I did. It was a very traditional dish.
Hmm.
Sherry and I've talked about it. We oftentimes people will cook green beans with potatoes. It's not that's a multicultural dish, but this is an Italian style one, so we're going to do that. But the first thing I'm going to start is we're going to make a funny cake. Now, the funny cake is this interesting dessert. You will hear it called funny cake. Some people call it Philadelphia funny cake. You'll also hear Mennonite funny cake. So it's comes from a variety of cultures, but they all have a similar style. You're essentially going to take a cake mix, put it in a pie shell or a pie dough, and then you're pouring chocolate on it and you're going to make it. And the name for it really comes because it's very funny looking, but I am telling you, it's so good. So the first thing we have to do for this recipe to do this is make the sauce because you don't want the sauce to be terribly hot. So I'm going to start setting up that. I want to welcome everybody into Food Talk TV. This is Let Me Be Frank live every Thursday. And then we will just kick it off together. If you hear a jingle jangle behind me, that's because we're here alone today and I got the four-legged monster at my feet.
Okay, so y'all, please tap the screen and share the live because we already had 2 in here from people sharing. And please follow the host. And this also the cook. That is Frank Mentor SF. And he is our cook today. There are several of us creators who go live every day right here.
Yes, yes. And guys, if you're not following us, please give us a follow and like and share and share the live with 5 of your friends. Let them know about Food Talk TV. And like Sherry said, we are 13 creators and we're always cooking live every day. And we also have the only live cooking battle on TikTok, and that's Grub Match. And it's every Monday night with one of our creators, Sketchy Chef, and she goes up against a person every Monday.
Hi, Dan.
All right, I'm going to jump in here because I got to get this sauce on. So this is unsweetened baker's chocolate. You can use sweetened if you want, but you'll want to adjust in the recipe later. When the recipe first was originated, they would say 1 square. Well, the squares were different. What they mean is 1 ounce. So when we post this, I'll have this clear, but this is 1 ounce of chocolate. Because if you notice the post I made this morning, I was having a little bit of a do the math week, and I posted about how to reuse these little cake and brownie pans that we get, and they come out every season around the holidays, and I collect them, and then I'm like, wait a minute, what am I going to do with them? So I was already had the scale out, so I measured my chocolate, and it's going to go on low heat. So this is a little bit of a slower process to the chocolate because I don't want it to burn. In my recipe, I do it a little bit different, and I don't use water. I use coffee because I think coffee just tastes better with chocolate. You can use water if you want. You could use water with instant chocolate. Doesn't matter. Totally up to you. Big thing around this is you want the chocolate, which is unsweetened, to melt in the water first. Keep it low, and you're just going to melt it. Doesn't take long. So this is one of those times where, put your headphones on, ignore everybody, and don't walk away to answer the door.
Do you know what?
What?
This show idea that we have been thinking about, I already know what dessert I make that's similar but different.
Oh, really?
It's a cake, but it's a lava cake. It sort of, and you do it a lot like this. It reminds me of it.
I thought about that, and I'd seen this, and it's funny. Sometimes when I see with that, I know the lava cake that you were talking about. I think I've seen you do it, and I'm like, where does that remind me of? But it wasn't until I was searching and I saw the picture for this that I thought, oh, they're very similar. I happened to love this as a kid. It was one of those cakes that my mother would make, and growing up, and I'd be like, I miss this. So I decided I'm going to give it a shot. Now, once the chocolate is melted with my water or coffee, I'm just pouring in my sugar and I'm going to stir it. And basically, we're going to make this setup because I'm going to use this as the chocolate layer. But you want to keep stirring it. So I kind of switch between a spatula and the little whisk, just because I want it to set up. I don't want to have burn spots. Oh, that's good. I do suggest, once you're just about done, if you think your chocolate's not sweet enough, you could add more sugar. It's totally, I think we're using unsweetened chocolate. You could use a bittersweet chocolate if it's your taste. I think it's a little too much. So using the unsweetened chocolate, add your own sugar. You could use it. You could use a sugar substitute. I actually will also add a little bit of salt because I do think I want a little salt. It helps kind of bind this together and just nice.
Frank, I wanted to mention about coffee and chocolate. They pair so nicely. I mean, I've used it in many of my cakes, and I've boosted the flavor. It just enhances the flavor of the chocolate. You actually can taste it, and I think that's just great for like making chocolate cakes and whatnot.
Yeah, I mean, I have a little mini French press, and I will sometimes just make espresso that way and I'll make it early so that it's not hot. But you can also just use instant granules. All right, so this is all melted. The chocolate and the sugar is now blended. I took some regular butter, took it out of the refrigerator a little while ago, cubed it up, just simply to make it melt. When I did a beta test of the recipe, and I realized it's much easier if you cube up your the butter early on. Otherwise, to be honest, it just takes a lot longer. Yeah, I know you're hoping
Okay,
to.
well, I got to tell you that Sketchy said that she likes your apron, which I had not even noticed until she said that.
Me either.
I
I like
tell you,
it.
I have a few aprons. I have one from Sherry, but it's hard to find fun aprons when you're my size. This one's a little short. I have worn it before, but I have to go on a couple conference calls today, and I knew I was working with chocolate, so I said I'm gonna follow everybody's lead and wear my apron. I do have a Food Talk apron I do wear, and I almost hate to wear it because I'm afraid I'll stain it. But yes, it's my cowboy theme. I actually have the same pattern in bed sheets.
Really? Somebody
I
said no
do.
vanilla? I don't think he's done.
I'm not
He,
done yet. Me
yeah,
not use vanilla? Uh-uh.
he makes that vanilla,
Uh,
people.
That's right, Chris. You're on deck. Because I'm all the creators get their first bottle, so I will be sending some to you. And that
oh,
is now I'm using my regular vanilla that I make, and my mom's
Okay.
recipes are vanilla forward. So I think normally a teaspoon would suffice. She usually doubles it. But I have another vanilla that I made with bourbon that is just so good and it would be perfect for a dish like this.
Hi,
oh
Karen.
wow.
Yeah.
Nice.
The flavored vanilla, like the bourbon, is great for short bake products because you still get a little bit of the flavor. But
Hmm.
yeah, it's something I make, and it's the only one who hasn't gotten it yet was Ashton has hers pending, but um, I didn't want to send it during the holidays because of all the holiday packages overseas. So I've got a box ready for Ashton, and then Chris, I've got yours on deck, and I think everybody else has gotten it. All right.
It
Chocolate
is.
sauce, just because I
Ah,
can.
Oh,
you sure can.
I can. Let me tell you. Let
yes.
me tell you. I am now going to take this. I'm going to put it out of the way on something that will not burn because I'm not going to work on this cake for a few minutes because I have to start cooking lunch. But why we do this is we do not want the hot sauce or the hot chocolate sauce hot when we're ready to use it. We want it to be a little bit on the room temperature side. Now we're going to change appliances for a minute. And I'm going to use my skillet again.
I
Let's
love
take
my
that.
skillet.
I
I
like
have
that.
telling you, I just have more fun using it. All right. So this is a dish I remember having as a kid. It's not particularly difficult to do. You can do it in a skillet. You can do it in a pan. I'll be honest, you can probably do it in a microwave if you really wanted to.
And
So
an air
what
fryer.
you
Will you
know,
do that?
maybe not. Well, maybe in an air fryer. I don't have one, so I'm it
Mine
depends on
bakes.
how saucy you can get your air fryer because there is some liquid in this that we don't
But
want
you
to
know
lose.
what? Let me tell you, my air fryer, it will grill, it will air fry, it will toast, it will bake. It does it all.
It does it all.
Does it all.
Yeah, I just some days I'm like, ooh, do I want one? And then I'm like, yeah, but there are other pieces of equipment I'll use more. So it's one of those kind of iffies for me. Although whenever I want fried foods, I'm almost inevitably wanting it. All right, so this one I'm just gonna here really quick dice up. Nothing special. Some garlic. You can use as much or as little. I use about a clove if they're small. 2 cloves. I went and got a
Yeah.
pound of green beans. You can use canned green beans. I am not okay. Let me say this right now. I tend to use fresh vegetables because I forget canned vegetables and canned products are in my freezer, in my cabinet. I grew up with canned vegetables. You can use a canned green beans on this. Is it something I have used? No. Is it because I'm snotty or stuck up on it? No. I just don't use them because I don't have them. Um, I use frozen vegetables when I need to, but green beans, and it's so funny. I was here's what's going in this, by the way, just so you all can see my fancy bowl. That's all that's going in this. Um, but when I was making this, I went to go wash the green beans, and I immediately got that fresh smell. And it's like, even though it's not the summer, I got that fresh smell you get when you get these vegetables. So I think that's sort of what I like about using the freshness. But I will tell you, if it was stormy and windy and rainy and I wanted a quick dish that's got a little bit of heart filled to it, yes, I would use canned vegetables. Just drain them. Rinse them. You don't need the liquid.
I think we all grew up on canned vegetables one at a time. I remember my family making this, and they use canned, and sometimes they use fresh as well. So
Yeah, it's very interesting to see, when my mother would, and it usually was depending on when was payday or not and where we were with things.
mhm.
So you can dice these, slice these, it doesn't matter. I'm not particularly fussy on how I put the onions in. I put the onions in first though, because I do want them to sort of meld in with the oil. If you have one of those choppers, use a chopper. It'll save you time.
I love
I
mine.
like onions that are sliced. I do like onions that are sliced. A little bit of salt. Because I have oil in there, I'm putting in my red pepper flakes now. And the red pepper flake, salt, and pepper are the predominant flavors of this, by the way. You're not going to get a lot of other tastes. So this is a very simple one. You can use Italian seasoning or herbs de Provence is fine. This is just a very simple dish. You could serve this over rice. You could. I think we had it as a side dish and then leftovers the next day. Let me tell you, I can remember going to school on more than one or 2 days as a kid with a Tupperware container of this. Quite
Did it
frankly,
bother you, or did you like it that much?
um, it wasn't that I disliked it. To be honest, I didn't dislike it as a kid. I I think people. I have some friends who are Asian descent, and I have some friends who are from Puerto Rico, and they used to say the same thing. It's not that we disliked the food we grew up with; we didn't like being different. The other kids had peanut butter and jelly sandwiches, and um, they'd have peanut butter and jelly sandwiches and tuna fish, and we'd have fried chicken or veal cutlet or chicken cutlet
Mm.
sandwiches or a meatball
Yep.
sub. So, or it was whatever was leftovers. So it was just a little bit of a difference for me. You're a kid. You always want what your friends have.
Yeah.
Sometimes my grandmother would put when I used to go to camp, she'd make exactly like a chicken cutlet sandwich and gave me a glass of milk in a mayonnaise jar. So that's how they rolled back in the day. You know.
Yep. All right. Now this does have tomatoes. You could use a can of tomato sauce if you like. I didn't want to make it so saucy, so I'm actually using a plum tomato. These are one of my favorites, San Marzano, but they actually have a little bit of texture to them. So what I'm going to do now is the one thing not everybody likes. I'm just going to give them a little bit of a squish. I don't want
Ash,
them to
Ash,
be.
Ash.
That's
I
what.
don't want them to be so smooth. I want some texture in this. Okay, I don't want it just to be so pureed. So all I did here is I did it this way to save me a little bit of mess. 'Cause they're going in next. Now, are there additions to this that you could do? Yeah, you could. I could have thrown bacon grease in here, and it would have been great. It would have been super good just as well. I'm sure my mother has used. She always had her her cast iron pan and her baking drippings. So you could have done that just as easy. So now I got my onions there.
It is
I
a
got my,
technical term. Yes.
what's that?
Uh, uh, James Linder said, "Is that a technical term?"
What term is that?
I'm thinking he's referring to something you said about the bacon, and I don't, I don't remember, but I told him yes, it is a technical term.
I don't know. All right, so
If
I've got
Frank said
onions.
it, it is. You know.
Well, maybe. I don't know. Sometimes you grow up with words and they may be technical, but you don't know it at the time. All right, I'm putting in some cracked black pepper because I like it. I'm putting in a little bit of this herbs de Provence, which is basically Italian seasoning, lavender, and a couple other things. It's just, I like it. It's one of the only season mixes that I will buy pre-made. I tend to either make them my own or keep it classic. All right, so now I think you can see. So these are, they're just on their way to getting soft. All right. Well, it can't be string beans unless I put string beans in it. So I took a pound of string beans, I washed them, and all I did was snap them in half. Nothing special.
I like
And
fresh
I
myself. Fresh is
all the
always better.
fresh.
Yeah.
Yep. And then I got a bunch of these little potatoes. And I like the little soft ones because they cook so fast. You could get other potatoes. You could pre-cook the potatoes and then throw them in. But since I know we have a little bit of time here, I'm just letting them all get a little bit of flavor. I'm making sure that the potatoes are going to get a little bit of olive oil on them because, they're no fun if they don't have a little oil in there. A little bit more. Make sure I didn't forget anything back here. Now, I got news for you. You could serve this just like this after it cooks. It'd be totally fine. And if you had an abundance of fresh tomatoes at your garden, you could just wash your dry, especially plum tomatoes, and just throw them in right now. And then, you're going to cover them up and they'll cook that way. The nice thing about doing the fresh tomatoes that way is that you'll have a very, very fresh summer taste. And matter of fact, if you were to take your tomatoes and freeze them just like that and throw them in, it will give you that almost summer flavor.
Almost
All
like
right,
flash
now,
freeze it.
yeah. All right, so now I'm going to pop in my tomatoes. Now, if you use it, oh, sorry about that. I forgot that I had a. There we go. Just going to shift
You're
gears over
telling your
here for the
age,
next.
junk food junkie.
All right. Now I'm going to take the rest of that water that was in the tomatoes. But you see, if you use tomato sauce, this becomes too tomatoey for me. I want to be able to see the beans. I want to see the potatoes. I don't want it to be like I just made tomato sauce and then threw everything in it.
Is this all the liquid that's going in it?
That's it.
Okay. So then
That
you
is,
just put a lid on and let it simmer.
and I have it about 300 to 350 degrees right now, and it's
Okay.
going to do its thing for while we do the next step.
Do you want me to tell Ashton why you strained the tomatoes before you and then went ahead and put I think that if people just got in here, they're going to be confused by that.
Yeah, sure. Go ahead.
Okay, well, he didn't want them whole, so he strained the juice off so he could use his hands and squish, which that is the technical term that guy was talking about. So that is
My
technical,
squish.
yes, squish, yes. And he broke them apart, put them in there, then used the rest of the juice. So that's
Yeah,
fine.
you could use you could use regular tomato sauce, which is, smooth and maybe a little chunky. I wanted to use plum tomatoes, so I wanted them to be a little bit of chunkiness because I don't want this to feel like a regular tomato sauce. I want it to feel like I'm cooked down tomatoes. All right. Now,
And that's going to reduce anyway, too, Frank, right?
yeah, well, it'll not only will reduce, hopefully the potatoes will absorb some of the flavor and it all kind of comes together. Now, I am not going to make homemade dough for that funny cake. I am perfectly happy using store-bought pie dough.
I do it all the time.
I am
Me
telling you.
too.
Now, I have made this I did it in two different pie shells, and one of the things I noticed is I actually don't like, I don't think I would use the deep dish pie shell as much because I think this looks better in it's easier to maneuver in the, regular pie shell. But, you know, the one I had that I also tried, it was in the deep dish pie shell. It's not as pretty, but I got news for you. It was all I could do not to cut into it, so I don't really care if it's pretty or not.
Well, this is the day you're going to get the questions, I guess. But are crushed tomatoes not chunky enough? My feeling is he used what he had in his house and he crushed them with his bare hands. I bet that's the answer. Is it?
Actually, depending on the quality of the crushed tomatoes, some brands are really just a quick crush and they are perfect. But a lot of store-bought brands, if you're not familiar with the brand, then it's too crushed. They're almost, many times when you buy a can of crushed tomatoes, they're two steps from crushed away from being chunky sauce. And I wanted to be able to actually see bits of the tomatoes still in it. So would crushed be a preference? Yes, totally would be an acceptable preference.
Good
I think
answer.
in the hierarchy, I would do this crush my own, number one, and then number two would be use crushed tomatoes, and number three would be use tomato sauce.
All right. Now,
All right.
Moses is loving your apron.
Thanks, Moses. All right, so now we're going to go back. All right, we've got our funny cake mix. I've got our chocolate here cooling to my bowl that I know many of us have, to my favorite bowl that I use. Just going to set this down a little bit. It's a pretty basic cake recipe. I've already sifted all my dry ingredients: baking powder, salt, sugar, or baking powder, flour, and salt already.
Which
I am
this
going to,
recipe, will this recipe be on foodtalktv.com?
yes, it will be.
Okay, so if y'all want to
It
know,
sure will be.
go there.
Now, this is something we don't see all the time. This has direct shortening. I like shortening. I do not care where people want to say do not use shortening. I use shortening when the recipe calls for it. This recipe calls for it. Suppose you
He's my
could not use it, but I don't play that
Hey,
game.
that's why you're my bestie right there. Now listen. Oh, sorry, Sketchy. She's my bestie. All right, but listen. I use that. I love to use Crisco because it's already in blocks. If the recipe says it and you use something else, it's gonna be different.
Exactly. Exactly.
Well, there's the science behind why different foods will cook differently if you use Crisco versus margarine versus butter. So I know what I want here. So I don't want that to happen. All right. So I've got my Crisco in here. It's not that much. It's about a quarter of a cup. You could use any shortening. I bet you could even use lard. Matter of fact, because there's so much chocolate in here, I bet you could even use baking grease and it would even give it a whole different flavor.
What was
I
that?
added sugar.
Okay.
What's that?
I was asking what you just put in the bowl with sugar.
I just put sugar because I'm going to cream the little bit of the sugar, and then I'm going to add the flour to this in a minute. So now I will
So,
tell you, I've done this by hand. It does take a little bit of time and exercise. So if you're not inclined, you could use a stand mixer or use a quick mixer like this. I'm just wanting to incorporate the sugar into the Crisco.
If you're just tuning in, guys, welcome. This is Food Talk TV. We go live every single day, once or twice a day. We have 13 creators who share their recipes with everyone on TikTok. So this is Frank Mentor SF, and we have who's Sherry_Skinner right below us. And we want to thank you. Give us a follow and a like, and share this live with 5 of your friends. Let them know about Food Talk TV.
Good deal. Thank you. All right. I have to go back. I realized I forgot one important ingredient. I'm adding the flour as we speak. I will be right back.
He's going to get cocoa. That's what I think.
Yeah, I think so. I think he's going to get.
And maybe some more coffee. Maybe some more coffee.
So interesting that you say that. I did not get the coffee because I don't want the cake to be brown.
All right.
So what I'm going to be doing is I'm just adding some milk. It needs some, milk. Now, if I didn't care, quite frankly, that the cake would be a brown tinge to it, oh yeah, I would add it. Not a problem at all. But I'm going to add some milk now. I am using lactose-free milk. It doesn't really matter. Use what you have. I'm sure you could probably even get away with a dairy-free milk if you like. Matter of fact, I'll bet you oat milk would taste really good. Now, this is not a fussy recipe, so it's not like they have to be in and you have to, spend a little bit of time with it. Just get it all in. So in this bowl, I have flour, baking powder, salt, sugar, milk, and you know what else is going in? Vanilla.
Vanilla.
Now, people often say when you're making something like the sauce, the chocolate sauce, why did I put the vanilla in at the very end? Because you don't want to cook vanilla over an open flame because it'll cook it out. So even like a rice pudding, you throw the vanilla in at the last minute. You don't really want to cook all that flavor out.
Hey, Frank, do you know who taught me that?
Who taught you that?
You.
Oh, did I?
When you sent me my vanilla.
Oh, okay. Yeah, it was one of those things because I never understood what the difference was. It's like, well, who cares? No, that's not. It actually cooks out the vanilla flavor if you add it too early. And then I thought, oh, that makes total sense. I've done that on rice puddings and stuff like that, and it's not been strong enough.
Yeah. So there's no cocoa in the batter.
No cocoa in the batter. Batter is just a simple, basic white batter. As a matter of fact, I'm going to make sure I got everything off here.
Somebody's asking about Grub Match.
Go ahead, give him a Grub Match recap for me.
Just letting them know about Grub Match. Grub Match is going to be Monday on the 20th, and that's going to be Chef Nella Bocci going up against Sketchy Chef. So Sketchy took a little bit of a little time because she was not feeling well, and she's doing much better, and she's already ready for Monday. So tune in 8 o'clock.
She's doing
Central
better.
Standard.
She's doing better-ish.
Better-ish? Okay.
That's why she is on bed rest while we're doing this today.
Yeah.
And it's 8 p.m. Central, 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So, guys, if you're looking to go up against Sketchy Chef and you want to go up and battle, go to grubmatch.tv, submit your application. Just a small little audition video, and you have to have at least 1,000 followers as a requirement, and we'll get back to you.
Yeah, and be
all right.
Be a content creator. Tell your friends that cook, but not the ones that don't cook. Don't tell them.
All right.
They're going to have to vote for you.
I use that little my stand mixer just to get me through it. You could do this all by hand with a wooden spoon, would have been fine. I add the egg last because that's actually what's going to loosen this. I will tell you, if you do it by hand, it's going to be almost like a biscuit batter. It's going to be stiff and sticky.
Okay.
All
Probably
right.
like a pineapple upside down cake.
Kind of similar, I think. When you do it with the mixer, I'm finding that it's definitely a lot. It's a lot more pliable, so to speak. So let me make sure that I put down one thing I want to do. Now, the reason I have the cocoa powder out, if you don't have bittersweet chocolate, you can use, you could use your unsweetened dark chocolate powder. You just have to, there's some nudges. I think to use the powder, it's about 3 tablespoons of cocoa powder, but then you're going to have to plus 1 teaspoon. I'll do the math for you, and I'll put it on the when I do the recipe up on the site, because you can do it that way if you like. If you just don't, if you're not somebody who buys bittersweet chocolate bar, you can use the cocoa. It
What
just
was
you have
that?
to adjust. Okay, that was my good cinnamon.
Hey, my good cinnamon.
Good
My
cinnamon.
good cinnamon. Oh, I have some really good cinnamon I use. Oh, that smells good.
I'm trying to
All
think
right.
of the cinnamon. Isn't it like a specific name? Does it start with a sink? I can't remember. It's a sink foil or something like that. Or I forgot the. It's a really good
I don't know.
cinnamon.
This was sent to me a couple years. A friend of mine, I made them something. They liked it so much, and now they travel and they got me some incredible cinnamon. And every time they go back, they send me a new container.
Awesome.
All right, so
Mm.
my batter, it's thick. Okay, pie shell. You could do this an hour or so ahead and put it back in the freezer. Doesn't matter. All you're gonna do now
Hi, Jojo. Thank you.
is get this sucker in. Try and do it in another scientific word, glops, because it's not the kind that you're going to be able to play around with. You don't want to tear the dough. So it's better to make several spoonfuls so that you can then spoon it out and try and balance it. But don't try and just be very careful. You don't want to tear your dough.
You can't just whomp it in there.
Mm.
You could womp it in if you have a lot of skill, but I prefer to do a couple womps. How's that?
I love that. I love that term. I love womp. I love
Well,
it.
you know, it's like making a tube cake or a bundt cake. You can't just womp it in. You have to spoon it in a couple different places because you don't want air pockets.
Right.
Yes.
All right.
Boy, look at those beans cooking over there.
I got them
Yeah.
simmering.
I can see that. Mhm.
Oh, this looks so good.
It really does. So you're
Doesn't
putting
it?
a cake in a pie shell.
A
I love
cake in a pie shell.
I
But
love it.
wait, if you've never had this before, here's the one that's going to get people like, no. And this is just something. Oh, must be the 12:30 mark. They seem to pop out of my ear. They're not. My ears are not great for those. All right. Yes, I just went and tasted the batter. Guess what? I know where my eggs are from. I'm not worried about it.
Because you know somebody was going to say something.
Oh,
Mm.
I do, but yeah, I know where my eggs are from. I know how old they are, and that's just what it is. All right. So now, guess what? It's done. We go back to our chocolate sauce. Give it a good mix because you may have a little bit of a film,
Hi, Angela.
and then just very easily pour the sauce over the pie.
My heart can't take it.
Tell me about
Neither
it.
can I. Now, this recipe I think has a lot of there's a little bit of sauce, and I think you could probably use less sauce. Oh, that's so good. Can you imagine a little bit of alcohol now?
Mm.
If you drank alcohol, but if you double the batch of the sauce, you could then, when you go to serve this, use the rest of the sauce on top.
Oh,
Now
yeah.
this is done. Nothing else has to be done. So it's a basic, simple flour, baking powder, salt, sugar, shortening, milk, vanilla, and egg batter, topped with that super easy unsweetened chocolate, sugar, and water and butter, vanilla sauce. This goes into the oven for about 350 degrees, 55 minutes. If you are one of those cooks that like to cook at 375, it's about 40 minutes. Check it afterwards and you'll be good to go.
Mm.
Now, I am going to shift
Oh,
operations here.
Mm.
By the way, a 9-inch pie shell will fit in most of the from the last 10-year toaster ovens that are convection. So you don't have to use your whole oven. You can actually cook in your toaster oven if it's got an oven function.
awesome.
I use my oven like that all the time.
Y'all know this is going to be good. Oh, man.
Oh. Guys, tap that screen. Tap that screen if you're liking what you're seeing. Because I'm liking. I know Sherry's liking it.
Yeah. And share the live and please follow Food Talk TV and Frank Mentor SF. That's him cooking up there.
That's me. So
Yeah.
And tap the
I know
bell too.
and I know that we have begun to get some regulars on our live on Thursday. So I was talking to Paul the other day, and some of you may have noticed we have a YouTube video. We have a YouTube channel. It's the same at Food Talk TV. So I convinced Paul. Now you know if you've been following me or if you follow me on my personal one, Paul is never in camera. Actually, we've seen Paul less than we've seen Jesse. I convinced him. I said, "What would it take to get you to come on a Thursday live?" Because he's usually here. He's actually in the front room working from home, waiting for me to finish because he knows it's going to be his lunch. Literally, what I make is what we eat. So he told me that if we hit 2,500 subscribers on our YouTube channel, he will do a cameo. So just to let you know, you may have seen a post I made. If you want to hear the person behind the stories, that's what he said he'd be willing to do. And we get off cheap. Ooh, we get off cheap because he said he wouldn't if to do him on my personal channel. He wants 50,000, but we're not going there today. All right. Oh my goodness. Can you see all that, people?
Oh, yes.
It just
Now,
looks so
Ashton,
different. It looks so
What's
different
that?
than my mind had it pictured.
Mm-hmm. Well,
it looks
I think that there's different ways that people could interpret it. Like if you did this with mashed potatoes, then it would be a little bit more creamier. Ashton, this is the reason to go back. I think Ashton's still on. Why I wanted to use the chunky tomato. Do you see? I still have pieces of tomato. They're not completely cooked out.
No, I think she was asking because she had seen somebody else did, and I missed the comment, so
Oh,
she was
okay.
asking for them.
Well, I mean, it's a great question, especially when you're snowbound or geographic bound. Sometimes you just can't get to a place. Yes, this is a super flexible. Nobody's going to know the difference but you.
Gotcha.
Okay, this has been about 20 minutes. I can already pierce my potatoes. This is why I don't have to boil the potatoes. If I had chopped these potatoes in half, this would have been done even sooner.
I think that's just going to be awesome. Thanks for the gifts.
Mm-hmm.
Sunny says,
Yes, thank you.
Ugh. And let me just do a little taste here.
All right, so somebody said, how did you season the beans?
Salt, pepper. There's onions in here already, red pepper flakes, and a little bit of herbes de Provence, because herbes de Provence is basically like an Italian seasoning. but it has the addition of lavender and some other things, which I don't like lavender. But in the herbs de Provence, when you put it all together, it balances so nicely that I like it. But this could be very simple with salt, pepper, and dry parsley would be fine in here. Dry basil, fresh basil would be fine in here. As a matter of fact, I have to chop. I am going to add a little bit of parsley.
Frank, when my friend Roseanne makes this, sometimes she adds sausage to it too.
Well, I will tell you, I would have added sausage, but my last three lives, I've done sausage, and I realized I didn't want the people to think that's the only protein I ever eat.
All right. So
Otherwise,
what
I
do
would
you?
have added.
All right. So what do you call this? The green beans? Does it have a name?
I'm sure there's an Italian name to it, but we would just call it green beans with tomatoes, and you can make it without the potatoes. My mother would do both. Sometimes she would just do onions, tomatoes, and green beans, and then it was like a quick side dish.
It's almost like a peasant dish, Sherry. That's what normally, because we grew up, that's what it would be. A lot of the dishes are very easy peasant dishes.
Oh, well, see, I was trying to
Right.
get him to answer for Nina or Nina, however she says it.
Yeah, you could use any vegetable you like in it, but I use the green beans. Traditionally, that's how it was done. But if you had like an extra pepper left over, if you had whatever you want, you could add to this. You don't even need to use the potatoes. You could just do a couple cans of green beans strained, a can of crushed tomatoes, and then basically you're going to freshen up the flavor by adding, your herbs, your spices, things like that. And I think this is just about done.
Yeah, that looks really good.
It does.
Please.
All right. Let's dish some of this baby up.
Dish it and pass it through the screen, Frank, if you can. Okay.
I figured, Chris, you would resonate with this dish. I thought you might have had a variation of it before.
Yes.
There we go.
Shredded beef or chicken.
You could, if you had leftover protein, shredded beef, shredded chicken, even pork. If you had
Oh,
pork the
wait,
night
wait, wait.
before,
Hey, Frank, I've got to clear something up.
go
Listen,
ahead.
Gina, he didn't say a pheasant. He said peasant, like poor people, like a peasant that worked for the higher up people. Yeah, not pheasant.
Basically, yeah, a peasant would be, it's how we would refer to ourselves, working class folks who work, who can't afford to go out for lunches or fancy food. Everything in this dish, technically, if you have your own garden, you would be able to make, or canned produce. Especially in the winter, a lot of this you could can up from the summer. Potatoes would still be.
Yes.
Yes.
He's so pretty. Yes. Oh, it was spell check. Okay.
So how would I serve this today? How am I serving it? I'll show you right now.
Sin says I don't like you guys. I love you guys.
Somebody doesn't like us. I'm okay with that.
No,
So I
they
don't.
said Chris didn't like them.
Oh, Chris didn't like it. No. Like is such a subjective conversation. I gotta tell you, a lot of people that don't like me. But you know what? They'll be the first people to call me when they want a recipe.
Right.
All right. So how I would serve this very simply, I would get some of my favorite and preferred Parmesan cheese on top. It's the only dairy on this, by the way. So technically speaking, you could serve, this is great you got to do a vegan or vegetarian lunch to omit the cheese or serve it on the side. This is hearty enough. You could add, and I will say I did make this one year for a vegetarian friend and I added pressed tofu cubes to it. and they absorb the flavor, work just as well. Lots of flexibility. This is Italian inspired, okay?
Evie said she
How,
she thinks it's called cucina povera, pork cooking in Italian. That's what she said that it may be referred
well, I
to.
think it would be parts of a dish of a series of dishes. And I tend to
Hmm.
like those because that's what my family ate growing up. You know,
Hmm.
my dad was a police officer. My mom worked for the post office. Come Thursday nights, there were a lot of Thursday nights where we were like looking what was in the cabinet that could be created from leftovers until payday came in the next day.
Hmm.
And this is how I would probably serve this,
What
just
is
like that.
what is that bread?
This is a bread I found because I didn't have time. Well, because I used the pizza dough for the chocolate sandwich that I've made now 3 of them since last Thursday.
Yeah,
So I
thank
had
you.
no
Oh.
pizza dough. But this is just a pizza dough tile bread. Any good, you want a bread that has holes because it's a dipping bread. So sourdough, Italian bread, focaccia bread, even a naan. Because you want to dredge, you want to eat it. This is how I would serve this.
And I would just
All right.
take it.
But I happen to find this brand it's just a pizza crust bread. So theoretically, you could take these and make pizza out of them. But I had several pounds of pizza dough that I had bought because I was doing the chocolate sandwich that we did last week. And
Oh yeah.
somehow, uh, this chocolate sandwich has become very popular, and I've had to make it several times. And it's perfectly reasonable. It is a perfectly reasonable breakfast. It's pain de chocolat. So it's just like you
Hmm.
would get if you were in, Paris. But it's super easy to make. And as I reminded Sherry the other day, you can use sugar replacement on that dish quite easily. Making room because I got to show you what's coming up now. So what does the cake look like? Well, through the magic of TV, I made this one yesterday.
And you
And
didn't
I'm
cut it.
telling
I'm
you,
so proud of
do
you.
you know how hard it
Yes.
was not to cut this yesterday?
I can look
I
at it.
put it in the
I can
refrigerator overnight.
imagine.
Now, when it first comes out of the oven, it's domed a little more. And if you notice that there's all this chocolate, I think that's because I use the deep dish pie shell. I think with the other one, when it cooks, it'll absorb in a little bit better. But I tell you, it smelled so good. And I am going to grab a piece and show you.
It must have been so tempting not to try to eat it yesterday, Frank.
Oh, I was trying to figure out if I cut this and if I cut into this, would it matter? For the live. And then I said, okay, I will wait. Now you could put some whipped topping, cream cheese, whipped cheese, whipped cream. You could put anything you like on it. Cool Whip, whatever you like. It
I
will not
feel
last that long.
I feel a hard no coming on about that.
I,
Why
you
would you
know, I kind of,
mess it up?
I'm sort of in that same. Oh my God, look at this. Okay, first piece is never pretty, but oh, look at that.
Looks so good.
Oh my
Mm,
word.
Look
Yes.
at that filling.
Can I just say I can't wait for it to come up on the foodtalktv.com. So I need it like now.
Yes.
So when it cooks, even though you pour the chocolate on the top, it goes to the bottom and it becomes this really gooey layer underneath. Now, if you can serve this warm, like right out of the oven, and I might have on this version on the bottom of the pie shell added chocolate chips. I might have.
Mm.
If you like nuts, you could also, after it's baked, maybe the last 5 minutes in the oven, you could add some toasted walnuts right on the top, or a mixture of toasted walnuts, which I think would be good, is toasted walnuts and cinnamon. So it'd be almost like a streusel. If you wanted to dress it up, you could. You don't have to. What I do know is when it's cold, it's much easier to cut and take out. When it's warm, it's going to come out much more like a pudding. So you want to give it a little bit of time before you.
Wow.
That looks incredible.
Yeah.
And the reason they call this a funny cake, it's because of how it looks, that you have a cake in a pie shell. That's where the name comes from. But again, when I did some research, I was looking at my recipe, which is on the older side. I wanted to know kind of where it came from. And what I started to realize is that there's several ways it's been called, and depending on where you come from, some people will call it a Philadelphia funny cake. Other people reference Mennonite as a Pennsylvania Dutch have been references on this. I don't care what you call it. For me, it's just good. So what we made today in 53 minutes, we made a green bean, potato, and tomato dish suitable for lunch, a side dish. You can have this with a salad. You could put this over rice or noodles, or just leave it as a side dish. It's got onions, potatoes, green beans, and that's it. Super simple. Let it cook. You could add protein, could add bacon, you can add whatever you want to it. But it's a super easy one to have. Matter of fact, I made this, 10 years ago. I didn't even have potatoes, but I did have canned potatoes. You know, the canned white potatoes that come already sliced?
Small ones.
Took them out, I rinsed them, threw them into, nobody knew the difference. So it's a super flexible dish to have in your cabinet when you get company. I just topped it off with some grated cheese and some fresh parsley just to give me a little bit of freshness. And then alongside it, we have a chocolate funny cake.
I want to address a couple of things. People are loving your wooden bowl there, and they're wanting to know where the recipe is going to be posted, which will be, if you look up in the upper left corner, how Food Talk TV is spelled, go to foodtalktv.com. It's the website, and the recipe will be there within 2 days.
Yes, because we have several that are already queued up. So as soon as it's next in line, it will be queued up. And this is what happens when I'm thinking, because I have to change out Valentine's Day. So I found this in my garage the other day. We did a Rosemary's Baby book theme book club a couple years ago, and I had the address of the building in New York as people were coming in the house. So I took it apart last night, and I had just enough lettering to do Food Talk TV, except I forgot. I have to reverse the camera, but you get the drift. But this is what happens what I do at 11 o'clock at night when I should be sleeping. I start looking for my decorations because I have to do St. Patrick's Day next. All right. I hope this was helpful. Did everybody have fun? And I hope you enjoy it. Please try it. Yes. Chris, Sherry, thank you for jumping in today.
Oh, thank you, Frank, for having us.
I am so glad to be doing this. I'll be back next Thursday. I don't know what I'm making yet, but that's part of the fun of it. It's going to be
good. Whatever.
We'll try. And we'll be back soon. So once again, last shots. You can make this. Anybody can make this. In fact, if you have kids that should be learning how to cook, this is a perfect recipe because they can adapt it. But it's a great recipe. As a matter of fact, this is the kind of recipe you can make the night before and reheat it. So if you're bringing it to somebody who's sick, it's a perfect recipe for that. This, on the other hand, is just pure indulgence. Because that second one is going in the oven right now. And that means I'm going to have another one to eat later. But I share with the neighbors. All right, everybody. Have a good one. Take care.
You too, Frank. Thank you. Bye, guys.